2023 will not go down as a banner year for comic books regarding sales, but there were good comic books out there, and I'm certainly here to help identify what the best comic books are. If you're still a fan and you want to avoid a lot of the crap that's out there, obviously I'll have a worst of 2023 in the next day or two, but today we're going to talk about the very best stuff, and there were a lot of comic books that I couldn't even fit on the list. Things like Rogue Sun, Joe Fixit, Moon Knight, Strange Academy Finals, Action Comics, Jay Garrick, The Flash, Void Rivals, The Mighty Barbarians, Titans Beast World, Lord of the Jungle, TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures, all comic books that I enjoyed throughout the year, but just weren't quite good enough to make the top 10 list because this is the creme de la creme, the best of the best, the comic books that if you missed them throughout 2023, I do suggest you go back and read them because they're absolutely fantastic. Now let's get it started with number 10 on the list, Ice Cream Man from Image Comics, W. Maxwell Prince, Martin Mazzaro on this series here. If you have not been reading Ice Cream Man, basically it's an anthology series in the vein of like a Twilight Zone. Every single issue is a new story that is horror themed and it's absolutely fantastic. W. Maxwell Prince is kind of like a comic book genius. He's absolutely incredible at developing these stories, and they always have like a little morality tale within them. And every single month that they deliver one of these comic books, it absolutely knocks it out of the park. Martin Mazzaro's art always delivers on this series. And there's so many weird, funny little things that go into there. And I do believe most people, if you read Ice Cream Man, throughout the year, there's going to be 2 or 3 issues especially that really resonate with you because he is touching on so many different topics within that series. And if you've not been reading that, you are missing out on probably the best horror series in all of comic books. And there are a lot of good horror series out there. Ice Cream Man from Image Comics, W. Maxwell Prince, Martin Mazzaro, absolutely one of the best comic books of 2023, in my opinion. Now let's move on to number 9, The Incredible Hulk from Marvel Comics, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Nick Klein. This has been a breath of fresh air since Donny Cates' Hulk run just kind of went into oblivion. We're going back to the horror roots of the Incredible Hulk himself, obviously with that superhero spin on it. And the Nick Klein art is absolutely sublime in this. If you like good horror visuals, if you like amazing monsters, if you like seeing the transformation of Bruce Banner into the Hulk and then back to Bruce Banner and how horrific it is, that is encapsulated in here. It's a little bit too much Monster of the Week so far. And I do believe as long as Philip Kennedy Johnson keeps building up the mythology on the story that is telling, that in 2024, as long as the quality is still there and Nick Klein is on most of the issues, this series will make a gigantic leap in 2024 because the quality is there. They're building towards something. They just haven't quite gotten to where it's absolutely spectacular because we haven't gotten the big reveals about what's going on with the Incredible Hulk and Bruce Banner, as now he's a vagabond. He's a nomad going throughout like the Southeast or whatever, trying to avoid all the troubles in his past. And he's got a little girl with him. Her name is Charlie. And her dream is to have the powers of the Hulk. Will that happen in 2024? I have a feeling that it might. I just have a feeling on that one. Number 8, Green Lantern, DC Comics, Jeremy Adams, Zermanico on art. I am an enormous Green Lantern head. I absolutely love that character, and Jeremy Adams is once again doing it right. In fact, I would say his Flash 1 Minute War, that last Flash event he did before he was removed from the Flash series. Also, Jay Garrick, The Flash, is also fantastic. But Green Lantern is the best series from Jeremy Adams. If you're a fan of Hal Jordan, if you're a fan of Green Lantern lore, this is the comic book for you. Another series that I do believe in 2024 will be much higher on the list because he's just now really starting to flesh out the story. Unfortunately, Green Lantern was interrupted for 2 or 3 months because of night terrors, which was a complete waste of time and really derailed the momentum of Green Lantern that Jeremy Adams had. He's got some really cool stuff going on in Green Lantern. Hal Jordan has a new power ring now. We're not sure exactly what's going on there. And it appears the emotional spectrum is a little out of whack, obviously building up to bigger and better things. And I'm not the only person that thinks Green Lantern was fantastic in 2023. Mark Miller actually said this was his number 1 comic book for the entire year. And I can't blame him. I'm just waiting for a little bit more from Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run before I really start putting it up there because I can see where he's going and I cannot wait till he gets there. Zermanico is also doing a fantastic job on that series. A breath of fresh air after Jeff Thorne's kind of failed Green Lantern run. Definitely happy to have Jeremy Adams aboard of one of my favorite characters, and he's quickly becoming a stamp of approval. When Jeremy Adams shows up on your favorite character, you're probably going to get a damn good comic book. Take that one to the bank. At number 7, Batman and the Joker, The Deadly Duo, DC Comics. Mark Silvestri writing and illustrating this one. This is a comic I think they had announced maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, or something like that. It felt like we were never, ever going to get this Mark Silvestri Batman series, and it finally arrived, and shockingly, it actually lives up to the hype. Don't believe Mark Silvestri ain't got it anymore. If you look at the visuals in this comic book, Mark Silvestri still has it in spades, and it turns out he's a pretty darn good writer as well. It was so refreshing seeing the characters within the Batman ecosphere actually being written in character. This is the best Harley Quinn that I've read probably in 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. For some reason, a lot of the writers at DC Comics just don't have a good voice for Harley Quinn. Mark Silvestri has it, and a lot of people could learn some things there. Now, we do get a fun Batman team-up book with the Joker with lots of reveals and everything happening. This thing would absolutely be higher on the list if it actually meant a little bit more. Obviously, it's a mini-series. It's kind of out of continuity, and I wish DC Comics could get a great creator like Mark Silvestri on a Batman book and put it in continuity, because it would mean so much to the character and to the fans and to the universe to get actual good, competent writers. And Mark Silvestri on Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, was a lot of fun. I hope he comes back. And this thing just was absolute dynamite. If you haven't checked that one out, it's a mini series. The trade's already out there, and you missed out on a lot of fun. And I can't believe it. Doc is the biggest Mark Silvestri fan in the world, but he's abstaining from comic books, so he didn't even read it yet. But he's going to come back, and he's going to discover one hell of a great Batman comic. At number 6, the Enfield Gang Massacre, Image Comics, Chris Condon, Jacob Phillips. You will probably recognize those names if you read that Texas Blood, another series that was basically a Western a couple of years ago. That was pretty darn good, and I think they may have upped the ante here with the Enfield Gang Massacre. Jacob Phillips, obviously a relation to Sean Phillips, the famed writer that teams up with Ed Brubaker, and you can see that within the art here. It feels like a good old-fashioned, fun Western with a really cool mystery in here. We've got a business owner that's dead. They're blaming the Enfield gang, and they need to prove their innocence, as we're getting conflicting stories, and things are kind of all coming together now, because there's one more issue till we get to the end. But there's a lot of bloodshed in this comic book. There's a lot of double crossing. There's a lot of bad things going on here, and they're absolutely being set up. They're being framed, and basically everyone's going down because of this thing, because there are some deep, dark, dirty secrets in that little town. And I just think it's a fantastic Western. I've been a Western fan my entire life. I just love the movies, and I'm glad that we finally got just an amazing Western comic book. Can we get some more of these, please? Chris Condon, Jacob Phillips, anytime they come out with something, I'm going to be reading it, because they've knocked it out of the park 2 times in a row now, and I know exactly what I'm going to be getting. A fantastic Western comic book with a lot of thrills and revelations and really bloody, gory art to go with it. A lot of fun to be had there. Next up at number 5, Transformers from Skybound. Daniel Warren Johnson writing and illustrating this one. And this has been a great series. Unfortunately, we're only 3 issues in, or I do believe this would probably be in the top 2. I don't think it can make number 1, because my number 1 probably was unbeatable, at least in 2023. But Transformers from Daniel Warren Johnson is everything I wanted in a Transformers comic book. When they announced that the Hasbro license was going over to Skybound, obviously Robert Kirkman, comic book legend, in charge of Skybound, apparently has an affinity for the Transformers and G.I. Joe. And obviously we got the Big T's and Void Rivals, another great series written by Robert Kirkman. And me personally, Daniel Warren Johnson just took it up like 5 notches on this bad boy. We're seeing Optimus Prime giving people freaking German suplexes. We saw him rip his own arm off and beat somebody to death with it. And it's very much an homage to the original Transformers cartoon, but they're upping the stakes. The ante's been upped a whole lot more. And there is a mystery out there. What the hell happened to Megatron? Because he's not there. And we got to find out what happened there, and it's a lot of fun. The only disappointing thing about this Transformers run from Daniel Warren Johnson is that he's not on for the long haul. He's only going to do so many issues before someone else takes over. But I'm absolutely enjoying it. So much fun. If you're a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson as a writer and artist, and I'm a huge fan, I think he's probably the best writer artist of his generation. This is the series from you. And if you are a Transformers fan and you've not discovered the Transformers under Skybound, you need to fix yourself and find this comic book. So much fun, so much action. And when you read the characters, you can hear the voices from the cartoon. And that's when you know he really knocked it out of the park. Daniel Warren Johnson continues to amaze in 2023. At number 4, we have The Sacrificers from Image Comics. Rick Remender, Max Fumera on this one. This is an original take on original characters, something Rick Remender is known for. This is one of the reasons he decided not to go do X-Men. He decided not to go and write Batman because Rick Remender is doing Giant Generator, creating his own stuff, and The Sacrificers almost came out of nowhere. I had actually kind of forgotten about Rick Remender. He hasn't had a really great series in a few years. I remember he had Scumbag, and some people like that. I thought it was awful. This is the kind of Rick Remender I like. It's kind of dark. We've got a group of young people that are being sacrificed to the gods, and we see the after effects of their families and what they're going through, having to kind of give their children away to be offered up to become this. I don't want to give too much away. They're basically going to be used to make something to honor the gods, and you can see the behind the scenes kind of politicking of the gods as there's infighting and all these things happening as you're discovering what's really in store for these young people. We've got pigeons, we've got killer whale people, we've got human people, and they have all been set up for something that is very, very dirty. If you have not been reading The Sacrificers, it's absolutely amazing. And The Sacrificers letter page was actually named by Jim from Weird Science, because he's a big fan. He had to write in. He wanted to name the letter pages. And there's a reason Rick Remender at one point felt like he was going to be one of the next enormous superstars. And it's because of stories like The Sacrificers. I'm glad he's staying on the indie scene. I would love to see him do Batman and X-Men, but it's probably best for him to do his own stories where he can do his own dark takes. And he doesn't do anything without getting very dark. Hopefully, some of these characters get a big win soon, because it's been getting darker and darker and darker in that series. And the art from Max Romero has been absolutely fantastic on that one. Some really good ideas and creativity going on in that series. Definitely check out The Sacrificers. I think it's ongoing, and we're really getting into some of the dirty stuff in 2024. At number 3, Batman, Superman, World's Finest, DC Comics, Mark Waid, Dan Mora. My number one comic book for the year of 2022 is back. Now, it's not quite as outstanding as it was in 2022 because there have been some filler stories and filler issues, but we're right now getting into the Return to Kingdom Come, that wonderful story that everyone remembers from Mark Waid and Alex Ross. Obviously, you got Dan Mora on the art this time. And I won't be talking about this one in 2024 because I have sworn off of Mark Waid. I'm off the Mark Waid bandwagon. I'm no longer going to support him because I've just had enough of the guy. But I have to admit, I've read the comic books, and Batman, Superman, World's Finest was easily the best series from either Marvel or DC, the best of the best when it comes to DC Comics. Still an outstanding series with outstanding art and really a lot of great homages and tributes to the Silver Age of DC Comics. And it's definitely deserves its spot on the list at number 3. And it's just too bad that Mark Waid is so insufferable that I can't continue on this thing. But thankfully, there are better things out there. And now let's talk about the top 2 comic books, in my opinion, for 2023. Coming in at number 2, the big revelation, Conan the Barbarian. From Titan Comics, Jim Zub, Roberto De La Torre on this one. And if you remember Jim Zub and his time at Marvel Comics, he was always the guy, for some reason, that if a series was about to get canceled, or if it was on its last legs and there was a bigger writer that didn't want to finish it, they would just have Jim Zub kind of come in and finish off the thing. And he never really got an opportunity to do anything amazing. And he finally gets on this Conan the Barbarian book from Titan Comics. Obviously, the license moved from Marvel Comics over to Titan. And this thing has just been so amazing. And I love Conan the Barbarian, the movie. I love the Conan the Barbarian tales from Robert E. Howard. I love the Conan the Barbarian comic books from Marvel originally, then obviously Dark Horse. And there's been so many great adaptations of the original Robert E. Howard stories into comic books, and they've always fantastic. You get great art across the board. And this is Jim Zub basically taking the spirit of what Robert E. Howard created with Conan and kind of doing new stories in different times and places in Conan's life. And the art from Roberto De La Torre is really the thing that stands out here. You know, the story by Jim Zub, absolutely fantastic. But the art, like, it feels like you're in the 80s again. The art is so fantastic. It feels like you're reading the best of the best when it comes to Conan the Barbarian comic books, and Roberto De La Torre should be an absolute superstar. I know they switched out artists recently, and I believe he is going to come back for the next story arc, but I cannot get enough of that Roberto De La Torre art on Conan the Barbarian. If you like Robert E. Howard and the tale of the Sumerians and all that kind of stuff and all the magic and mysticism and all the things that go into making Conan the Barbarian stories amazing, you will like this series. And we're getting more Conan the Barbarian in 2024, not just with the mainline series. We're also going to get a Savage Sword of Conan series as well. And it feels like they're going to be expanding out and out and out with all this stuff now that they've had a lot of success with this Conan series, and it's been well-deserved. Really is elevating Titan Comics as a publisher. They've done some really cool stuff in the past, but this is easily the best comic book I've ever seen them put out. It's absolutely phenomenal, ongoing series. And Jim Zub, is he going to become a superstar? I'm not really sure. We'll see if he gets those breaks, but he feels like he could be a superstar on Conan the Barbarian, and it's just been absolutely fantastic, deservedly as the number 2 series in all of 2023. Now it's time to get to my number 1 comic book series of 2023. I'm cheating here. I had to do a couple of things, otherwise the entire list was going to be dominated by Mark Millar. We're just going to say Millarworld in general is the best comic series of 2023. The Ambassadors, Nemesis Reloaded, Nightclub, The Magic Order, all culminating with Big Game from Image Comics. Now they are going to be moving over to Dark Horse in 2024. We've got Mark Millar, Matteo Scalera, Matteo Bafanghi, Olivier Coipel, Travis Charest, Carl Kerschel, Frank Whiteley, Jorge Jimenez, Juanan Ramirez, and Pepe Larraz. Some of the best artists in the entire industry have been working with this man all year. And Mark Millar literally did not have a dud. I don't think there was one issue of any of those series that we did not recommend in our Best of the Week series that we do every Saturday on the channel, and it was well-deserved. Mark Millar got us through some very, very dark days in comic books in 2023 by continuously putting out amazing comic books all at the same time. I think we had 3 different Mark Millar series going at once as we're leading up to Big Game, and obviously Big Game was the huge one, where we got all these new characters interacting with the old characters that Mark Millar hasn't even written, I think, for like 15 years or whatever. And it all came together. We got Wanted, we got Empress, we got Kick-Ass, we got the Kingsman, we got Huck, we got everything in one comic book. And it just felt like this amazing celebration of Millarworld and really like a love letter to Infinity War as well as Endgame. You can definitely tell that Mark Millar has an affinity for the MCU and really wanted do something to kind of highlight how amazing that story was. And he kind of does it with his own characters in his own unique way. It's Mark Millar. It's much darker. It's much bloodier. There's a lot more death. There's also an enormous light at the end of the tunnel and an enormous elevation for the character of Kick-Ass, who a lot of people know and love from the series. And I just think he knocked it out of the park. I just can't imagine any writer having a better year than Mark Millar did in 2023. What a resurgence. Yes, he never really left. He's always been good, but my goodness, he really upped his game, and everything came together at the perfect time with the perfect comic book event that Marvel and DC have not touched in a long time. I'm enjoying Beast World. It's worth mentioning and certainly worth considering as one of the best comic books of 2023. Only 2 issues in. Beast World did not even come close to touching anything that was happening in Big Game. And I think Beast World is probably the best DC Comics event that they've had in probably like 4 or 5 years. That's how good I think Beast World has started out. We'll see if they can nail the landing on that one. Obviously, Mark Millar nailed the landing with Big Game, and it was just the culmination of so many amazing things as he gets ready to take his comic book properties over to Dark Horse. We're getting amazing library editions of a lot of these stories. And I'm going to be going on the Patreon once a week. We're going to be doing the Millarworld read-through with our Comics Guild, starting with Wanted number 1, concluding with Big Game number 5. It's going to be on the Pass the Helmet tier of Patreon, the $5 tier that we do have. And I do want to encourage you to go check out the Patreon. There's a link in the video description. We're going to be doing a lot of great stuff. We're also going to be doing a read-through of the Planetary series from Warren Ellis as well on the Patreon. And there's also 3 other comic book podcasts that we put out every single week with Aaron Sparrow, Doc, Jim from Weird Science, all of your favorite guests on Thing Critical. And definitely congratulations to Mark Millar. And I really appreciate the good work, sir. And hopefully a better 2024 as well.